Hey guys, tonight we slip into a pair of cracked leather sandals, sling a rough linen satchel over one shoulder, and begin a run that may outpace a galloping horse. The sun is barely cresting over the dusty ridges of the Persian plateau. Already, the ground bakes beneath your feet and the air smells like dry stone and cumin. And hey, let me know in the comments where you are tuning in from and what time it is there. I love seeing how far the sleepy little caravan reaches. You've got 300 miles ahead of you, your legs feel like damp rope, and you've only eaten a handful of salted dates. But your footfalls will echo down centuries. Right now you're crouched in the shade of a rock ledge. Leather stretched thin, oiled again and again to stop it from cracking in the dry wind. Inside it, a letter. Or maybe it's a small scroll, doesn't matter. A nod from the postmaster, he's barely older than you but missing 3 fingers and half an ear. You don't ask, you just run. It's wrapped in wax cloth, stamped with the royal seal of King Darius himself. It's the music of speed, of distance, of duty. But they still argue whether human runners like you were officially part of the imperial design, or just a rogue solution when horses weren't fast or reliable enough over rough terrain. One fringe theory claims that in mountainous regions, messages often arrived faster via runner, less slipping, fewer broken legs. More blisters, though. You've got 9. That seal could feed your family for a year if you sold it or get your head spiked on a wall for even thinking about it. That's the postal relay system imagined Pony Express, but invented 2,000 years earlier and run on pure sweat, discipline, and the occasional onion. Watching a pair of lizards duel in the sand while you wait for the signal, a horn or a flag, or just a weary nod from the postmaster that the message is ready. Most people ignore you. A few shout half-hearted greetings. One child offers you a fig. You don't stop. Sandals worn almost smooth, but you know just where to place your feet. You've memorized this stretch, every thorn bush, every sun-bleached skull by the road, left there as a warning or maybe just forgotten. Only when it's absolutely urgent and only if you've got the wax token to prove your royal messenger class. But ahead you spot a blackened post stone the halfway mark. You allow yourself 5 minutes rest. You've had one once. It was glorious. And awful. The horse tried to buck you off the whole way. You'll take sandals and silence over that any day. Still, you tighten the strap on your mail pouch and step into the silence of morning, bound for glory or more likely a pulled calf muscle. You probably won't survive this, to be honest. Your legs carry you over ground so fast you sometimes arrive before the news itself spreads. You keep the empire stitched together not with steel but with footsteps. Somewhere, a general is planning a war that your message might help stop or start. Orders to mobilize troops. Warnings of rebellion. A love letter once, smuggled in a hollowed-out reed and sealed with beeswax. It smelled like rose oil. You weren't supposed to read it. You didn't, but you thought about it the whole 12-hour run. You once beat a raven to its destination. Still feel smug about that. Dust from yesterday's run still clings there. You haven't bathed in 3 days, and your last drink of water came from a questionable puddle near a goat camp. The air tastes like ash. Somewhere in the distance, a hawk shrieks and the sound floats over the low hills like a warning. Right leads to the old village, left to the pass. Your gut says left, you trust it. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Your name, if you were lucky enough to have one that I sent to you just a nickname based on your stride, isn't written anywhere official. The bag on your hip is older than you are. You scratch the back of your knee. The Persian sun does not care about your mission. It climbs pitiless, and you rise with it. The sandals slap the dirt with that flat smacking rhythm you've grown to love. The ancient Persian Empire, sprawling across thousands of miles, had one genius innovation, the chapar khane. Historians agree it was revolutionary. Your route today winds through scrublands and passes scattered villages of thatch and mud. Running mail wasn't just about speed. It was about timing. And oh, the things you've carried. The terrain shifts, more rocks now, bigger stones. You adjust your stride. Up ahead, a fork in the road and no sign. You hesitate. A traveler passes on horseback. He looks down at you, bemused. You're running? He asks like you've lost your mind. You nod. He rides on. Sometimes the Empire does provide you a horse. Not often. By noon the heat is unreal. You squint at the horizon. The air ripples like boiling water. Your water skin is nearly empty. You collapse in the shade of a gnarled tree. Your feet throb, your hands shake a little. But the message is safe. Somewhere back in Susa, a royal scribe is probably sipping pomegranate wine. You meanwhile eat half a boiled egg and watch a beetle roll a ball of dung across your toe. You're too tired to care. You scratch a tally mark into the post stone. 73 runs, maybe 74. Who's counting? You are. Because while no one will sing songs about the mailman, not in a court full of warriors and kings, you know better. The rhythm comes back slower this time. Your legs are tight, your shoulders ache, and the sweat sticking to your back makes your tunic feel like wet bark. You crest a rise and there it is, flat, wide, and terrifying in its endlessness. This isn't some rough goat path worn into the ground by accident. This is a purpose-built highway, older than some of the mountains, running straight as an arrow through the Empire's beating heart, but you've found your pace again. One step, one breath, one stretch of dirt at a time. The royal road lies ahead, a marvel of Persian ambition. A message could change horses, change hands, even change languages, but it never ever paused. It's said that King Darius ordered its construction to ensure that no word, no whisper, no enemy move went unnoticed. Might throw a shoe, might panic and buck, but you just keep going. Even when your toenails go black, there's pride in what you do. A strange kind of invisible honor. Riders get noticed, generals get parades, but runners? You glide in and out like shadows. The message arrives. No one asks how. It's stretched nearly 1,700 miles from Sardis in the west to Susa in the east. In some cities, when you show up, it means conscription notices. Skeptics doubt the timeline, but you've done worse. Once ran from Ecbatana to Arbela in 48 hours, though you couldn't walk for a week afterward. You're no longer a dusty man with dirty feet, you're the voice of the king. And that royal road beneath you? You run your fingers over the grooves, tracing the name of some forgotten city. You're not sure how many hours have passed, maybe 5, maybe 9. You forget to care. You whisper its name aloud just to hear a voice. Even if it's your own, it's not just for you, it's because of you. You raise a hand in greeting or maybe farewell. So fast that when he finally stopped, he dropped dead mid-step, but the letter stayed clutched in his hand untouched. They bury him with the seal still in place. No one ever opened it. Tax increases. Orders from the capital that no one's brave enough to ignore. A few times, you've had villagers slam their doors as you approached. Once, someone threw a cabbage. Rotten, missed. You glance over and spot a small herd of camels, watching you with that special mixture of disdain and boredom only camels seem capable of. But burn your thighs like fire. You focus on your breathing. 2 in, 1 out, the scent of distant smoke. A small outpost just barely visible, its rooftop banners fluttering in the twilight. Repeat. 1 snorts, you wave, no soldiers, no travelers. You pass an empty relay station. A small stone building half buried in dust. Once it would have been stocked with supplies, fresh mounts, and someone to check your seal. Now it's just silence and bones. Others believe runners like you operated more informally independent legs that filled in the gaps. Covered terrain that horses couldn't handle or stepped in when urgency outpaced preparation. Every 15 miles or so an easy day's ride for a well-fed horse. Or a punishing sprint for a man like you, there were relay stations, guard posts, water depots. Not every message is given a fresh horse and a silk banner. Some messages have to survive on foot, like you. The sun started its descent now, casting long shadows behind you. The worst part of the day is approaching that limbo between burning heat and chilling desert wind. Your body can't quite decide whether to sweat or shiver. You make a mental note, need new ones next week if you survive this. You once tried running barefoot. Just once. You still have a scar on your left heel from a hidden thorn. It's shaped like a crescent moon. The idea was simple, mail never stops. And yet here you are, feet pounding this ancient track, running instead of riding. Because not every message gets the royal treatment. As you jog down the smooth center lane, marked by time and war and the ghosts of runners past, a thought crosses your mind: horses might rest. The road is unusually quiet today, not human ones, thankfully. Probably goat, probably. You stop just long enough to refill your water skin from the clay jug outside. The water's warm, slightly metallic, but you're not picky. You pour a splash over your face and feel your skin tighten in the dry air. Somewhere far away, thunder grumbles not from the sky, but from the hooves of a cavalry unit training near the northern hills. You pick up your pace. Of course, not everyone's happy to see you. Still, the moment you flash the seal, everything changes. Historians still debate how centralized the runner system was. Some say it was as organized as the horse relay network. One surviving clay tablet lists a runner's journey that covered nearly 300 miles in under 3 days. Your sandals have begun to fray at the toes. A small dust devil swirls across the road ahead. You sidestep it, barely breaking stride. You pass a milestone, a squat marker stone with faded cuneiform etched into it. Time stretches weird out here. The road seems to unspool ahead of you like a ribbon that never ends. The sky turns amber. In the far distance, you spot a rider, coming fast. You step to the side and keep jogging. No one stops runners unless something's gone wrong. As he passes, he shouts something too quick to catch. Then you're alone again. There is a story among the runners, probably just a myth, that one of the king's couriers ran so far, you wonder what it said. A peace treaty? A death? You arrive at the outpost just as last light dies behind the hills. A pale orange haze lingers on the stone walls as if the sun forgot to take all its heat with it. Your chest heaves. Your tongue feels like it's been dusted with chalk. But you made it, one relay down, except, of course, this one's not for you. You're not a horseman. You're a runner. The relay stations were built for royal riders, only men with authorization seals carved in bone. Men who sleep indoors and have clean robes that don't smell like old garlic. You approach the outer gate anyway, just close enough to see if anyone's home. A sleepy guard leans against the archway, chewing on something tough and probably stolen. He squints at you. Runner? You nod, holding up your pouch just enough for him to see the seal glint in the moonlight. You can sleep in the olive grove if you don't snore. He doesn't invite you in. Water's in the basin, he mumbles, jerking his chin toward a low stone trough near the gate. You nod again, too tired to answer. You make for the water and dunk your whole head in. Your domain is the dusty shoulder, the goat path beside the milepost, the forgotten trails connecting towns no map bothers to name. Official records exalt the horse relays. But scattered artifacts, runner sandals, coded tablets, message tubes designed for belts tell another story. Some believe an entire class of mail runners operated alongside the mounted couriers, silently, invisibly filling the gaps. The road calls and you answer, groaning like an old door hinge. Cold, blessedly cold. You gasp, then gulp down a few careful mouthfuls. The moon filters through the leaves in shifting shadows. Something rustles nearby, maybe a fox, maybe not. You grip your knife handle just in case. The air is still. Even the birds have taken the morning off. You pass a farmer driving donkeys stacked with firewood. He gives you a tired nod, you nod back. Neither of you speaks. You both know what effort cost, but they are not for you. He offers you a fig for a song. You don't sing. He throws you the fig anyway. You chew slowly, using the motion to distract yourself from the burning in your calves. You eat it while you run. It tastes like syrup and dust. You're approaching the next known danger zone, the horse relay stations. A low complex with thick mud walls, a watchtower, and a postmaster's flag flying from a crooked pole. There's a line of royal horses tethered in the shade-sleek, muscled, well-fed. The really nice ones, the ones you're not allowed to touch. They were lean, sun-darkened, fast as desert wind. You don't stop, you barely slow. There's no shade for miles. Just you and the breathless shimmer of heat rising off the road. They never stayed long, never spoke more than a sentence. But they carried the king's seal, and that made them legendary. In rough terrain, rocky paths, or steep mountains, a human runner can outpace a mounted courier by hours. You're lighter, more agile. Less prone to injury. He goes back to polishing a spear that probably hasn't seen action since his grandfather's time. The trough is probably filled by runoff from the station's roof. Not clean, but wet. Your first pair was made by your uncle, cut from discarded saddle leather. They didn't fit, you bled for weeks. But you never stopped. You reach the top and stop just for a moment to look back. You rinse your feet, no point taking off the sandals. But a well-trained runner under ideal conditions could do over 100, and when the horse stations are sparse or terrain is brutal, well, guess who's more reliable? You stretch. You adjust your pouch. You run. If you see the state of your toes, you'll cry. You tried that once. It dehydrated you more than it helped. You sleep under the olive trees, wrapped in your cloak, using your pouch as a pillow. Morning breaks like glass sharp, sudden, and far too early. There's a dull ache in your thighs now. Not quite pain, more like a memory of pain waiting to return. Somewhere ahead are the relay stations built for horses, stone structures stocked with fresh mounts, grooms, guards, food, and even wine. Because while the royal road was engineered with horses and minestone paved, arrow straight and wide enough for chariots, the runners have always lived on its margins. Historians still debate how much of the royal roads network truly relied on human couriers. You like the idea of that. A shadow system, loyal, forgotten, fast. Today's run wins along a lower stretch of valley, the kind that floods in spring and bakes dry by midsummer. Your stomach growls around mid-morning. You pull out a pouch of crushed almonds mixed with dried mulberries, your own blend. Better than trail bread, not as good as fresh dates. You remember a time when this job seemed glamorous. Back when you were a boy, watching the older runners pass through your village. You'd watch from behind the date stall and dream of sandals like theirs. And now here you are, dream fulfilled, feet ruined, running across an empire that only half remembers you exist. The sun is overhead now, hot enough to cook flatbread on a shield. A hawker passes on a cart, pulled by a mule who looks one eye blink away from retirement. You catch it without stopping. One smooth move, you're proud of that. The landscape changes again, low hills now, dotted with poppies and scrub. You slow slightly as one comes into view. You don't make eye contact. You just jog past. A guard calls out. You need a horse? You shake your head. Runner. The guard shrugs, already losing interest. You run on. The truth is, sometimes the horses are faster, but not always. Horses also spook easily. You once saw a royal courier lose 3 hours because his horse got scared by a bush that looked vaguely like a lion. You're losing count of the steps now, which is usually a good sign. It means your body's moved into that strange, floaty state runners sometimes get where the ache blurs into the rhythm, and the rhythm blurs into something like peace. Almost like flying, only slower, and much sweatier. Your breath comes steady. Your arms swing loose. The pouch at your side bumps lightly against your ribs, and you keep checking every few minutes that the seal is still there, still unbroken. It's narrower than the main road, steeper too, but you can cut a day's distance into half if your knees survive the downhill scrabble. It is also known for sudden rock slides and the occasional snake that looks way too smug for something with no eyelids. It always is, you've never lost one. Not even the time you were chased by 2 dogs and an angry grandmother. The official maps show clean, wide roads, but in places like these, the official paths vanished. You know this trail. You could run it blindfolded. You probably have during a sandstorm. You pause under a ledge, sip from your skin, and chew a few roasted chickpeas. Not exactly a banquet, but they keep your belly quiet. Some argue the runners must have used secret trails. Others believe they simply ran harder. One wild theory claims the Persians bred a specialized class of ultra-runners trained from childhood, each matched to a specific region's terrain. That means water, maybe even a well. You pick up your pace. You pass an abandoned shrine, one of those half-forgotten altars built centuries ago to some minor god of travelers. You don't stop completely, just slow down as you pass. An old woman is hanging laundry linen tunics in soft earth tones that flutter like tired birds. She sees you and gives a subtle nod. You lift your hand in return. It's nothing more than a cracked stone now, but someone's left a handful of dried apricots on top. You once accepted a fermented garlic pastry from a well-meaning old man in a mountain village. It haunted you for days. You still wake up sometimes tasting it. You shudder and keep moving. No proof yet. But you'd believe it. Today, you're aiming for the canyon trail. You turn off the royal road and follow a dry creek bed toward the canyon. The air smells sharper here, juniper, cracked shale, maybe a little dung. Not fresh dung, dung with a story. Your sandals slide a bit on the loose gravel, but you're used to that. You learned early that downhill running isn't about speed, it's about control. Barley, if you're not mistaken. And beyond that, the glint of roof tiles in the sun, a proper town. It's not much, just a recess in the rock with a low wall of piled stones. A man at the gate stops you with one look. Besides, this part of the trail gives you an advantage over riders. Horses won't risk the descent. Even mules get skittish. But you? You were practically born on unstable ground. You recite old poems, play games with your breathing. Sometimes you even compose letters you'll never send. Today, it's a list of things you'd rather be doing. There's a blackened patch from an old fire and a few scorched bones. Go, you hope. A guard blocks your path. Inside, it's cooler, dimmer, and full of people pretending to be more important than they are. You lean back slightly, arms out for balance, eyes scanning for loose rocks and shifting shadows. One misstep and the Empire will have to find another guy with calloused feet and trust issues. About halfway down the canyon, you spot it. The crude shelter runners use when they read too far from a village to risk sleeping in the open. You don't stop. You're making good time. Historians still puzzle over how messages got through terrain like this. Because there are moments like this where you leap over a crevice, land lightly on one foot, scramble sideways along a rock face, and you feel like part of the land itself. At the canyon's base, the air thickens with heat again. You think about food a lot on the road. What you'll eat when you finish, what you won't eat ever again. Now the path flattens out again, winding between low hills and thorny shrubs. You take one, you leave a pebble. Fair trade. You're starting to see signs of village life again, goat droppings, faint paths, a broken fence. The village is barely more than a cluster of huts and a communal oven, but it's enough. A boy runs beside you for a while, barefoot, curious. He asks if you're a soldier. You shake your head. Worse, you say, mailman. He laughs. Do mailmen get swords? You shake your pouch. We get secrets. He thinks about that, then darts away, back to his goats. You keep running. Your mind starts to wander. It's a trick you learned to distract from the grind, sitting in shade with a fig and a friend. Sleeping for 3 days, not running, you grin, you don't mean it. Well, maybe the second one. You crest another rise, and suddenly the landscape changes again. Fields, real ones. You reach the outskirts by late afternoon, coated in a film of sweat, dust, and low-level resentment toward geography. Message? You lift the pouch. He doesn't even ask to see the seal. He waves you through. The main square bustles vendors yelling over baskets of pomegranates, donkeys braying like they're auditioning for a choir, someone frying something that smells dangerously good. But you don't stop. You head straight for the magistrate's hall, a wide building with sun-bleached. Dawn creeps in like a lazy thief, soft, golden, and pretending it didn't spend all night out. You wake up to the sound of chickens arguing under the fig tree and someone loudly grinding grain nearby. Your back aches. Your neck is stiff. But your legs? Your legs are already buzzing. That's the thing about this life. The moment your eyes open, your body remembers what it is. You're not a warrior. You're not a farmer. You're not a merchant hauling silk and lies across the Zagros. You're a runner. He hands you a new scroll, tightly wound and sealed with wax, fresh enough that it's still soft to the touch. You tuck it into your pouch without ceremony. You don't ask what it says. You never ask. And you've got another message to deliver. The magistrate's scribe finds you in the courtyard, bleary-eyed but upright, and just like that, you're off again. Here, the wind cuts harder, fierce and dry as bone. You wrap your headcloth tighter, tuck in your loose ends, and squint into the gusts. So you sip, small mouthfuls, swish, swallow, wait. The town falls away behind you in a blur of smoke, sweat, and gossip. Weeks in advance, someone would hide skins beneath rocks or bury pots near certain landmarks. Runners didn't just run. They mapped. They memorized. They adjusted on the fly when bridges washed out or trails disappeared under sand. You once rerouted through a sheep field and beat a mounted courier by 2 hours. You've done it yourself. In fact, you pass one of your own hiding spots now. One theory suggests runners were given incredible autonomy, especially those who'd proven themselves. Another argues that runners are more like tools used, discarded, replaced. A loose stone, slightly darker than the others, tilted at just the right angle. You watch it spin and scatter pebbles like an angry child before it fizzles out, nature's tantrum. You've seen worse. The plateau offers no mercy. The heat feels heavier here, like it's trying to crush you into the earth. Ahead lies a long, sloping stretch of gravel and wind. You know this route. Not for the terrain, but for its utter lack of anything useful. You touch it anyway, a quiet ritual. Proof you're still on the path. That's how you get through this part, not by focusing on the heat, or the way your sandals are starting to come apart again, but by imagining something else. You're not exactly wearing royal slippers. Not against time or horses, but against someone your own age. You told yourself you'd know when to stop. Maybe even someone slightly faster. You imagine their breath at your shoulder, their feet pounding the earth behind you. Their grin as they try to pass you. A whole herd bell-necked and judgmental. A boy lounges nearby, half asleep, chewing a reed and watching the clouds. No shade, no water. No friendly shepherds waving crusts of bread. Just dry hills that whisper, good luck. He was older, wiry, fast as a dart. But his body simply gave out. He fell sideways mid-step, crumpled like parchment. The message was fine. He wasn't. You shift your pouch to the other hip, roll your shoulders, and let your thoughts drift. Maybe you're in a foot race. The boy watches you like he's studying a strange bird, and in your mind, you surge forward. You always win. The terrain begins to level out as the road climbs toward a barren plateau. A gust lifts the edge of your cloak and sends a dust devil whirling up the trail ahead. Your water is already half gone, and there's no well until the next hamlet at least 5 leagues ahead. Horses avoid it. Runners don't get that option. A misstep here isn't just a stumble, it's a fall. A long one. A few pebbles bounce off into the void, their tiny echoes swallowed by the canyon below. One of the lesser-known facts of the Persian mail system, at least to outsiders, is that runners like you sometimes had to cache water along routes. You leave it untouched. You're not desperate, yet. That kind of preparation is what made this system work. Not just muscle and stamina, but strategy. Planning. Historians still argue whether this level of flexibility was officially supported or just tolerated. It'll have a resting place, a corner of shade, maybe even soup. You'd like to believe the first one. But then again, your last replacement sandals are made from camel hide. By midday, your lips are dry and your legs are heavy. But you don't stop. Stopping means thinking. And thinking leads to realizing how much this hurts. So instead, you remember. You remember the first time you saw a nail runner collapse. Not from heat or thirst, but from exhaustion. They buried him with his sandals on. It felt right. You told yourself you'd never run that far. And yet, here you are, still going. Still not stopping. You pass a milestone marker, carved and weathered, the numbers barely readable anymore, and then a sound. Faint at first, metal on rock. You freeze. Bandits? No. Too light, too patterned. Goats, and sure enough, over the next rise, you find them. He sees you and stands, blinking like he's not sure if you're real. You raise your hand. Water? You ask. He nods, then points to a cracked clay jug buried under a pile of stones. The figs were real. They hung from twisted branches just outside the station, ripe and sun-warmed. You plucked 2 on your way in, chewing slowly as you stepped into the shade of the mud brick outpost, feet trailing the dust of 100 li behind you. You didn't ask who the soup had belonged to first. Then you checked it again. The seal, the smooth wax with the king's mark stamped deep, not cracked, not melted. Still perfect, no one stopped you this time. The station was nearly empty, just an old man asleep on a mat and a stray cat licking soup from a cracked bowl. You collapsed against the cool wall and let your breath settle. You think about nothing, that's the trick, really. People assume mail runners like you must be constantly alert, full of cunning like spies on sandals. You lean your head back and close your eyes for a moment. In reality, you've mastered the art of resting your mind mid-run. You stop thinking about aches, distance, hunger. You drift, but never too far. Because the seal must not break. That little lump of wax is more than decoration. It's proof the message has arrived, untouched, unread, untampered. Even the mere suspicion that it might have been broken can unravel everything. And if it's broken, well, that's simple. They assume treason. His message arrived with a faint crack in the wax. Barely visible. Could have been heat. Could have been a bump on the road. Could have been an accident. And then you die. Some records suggest small allowances for natural degradation melted wax from heat, for example. But no artifacts have confirmed it. What is clear, though, is that the punishment for even suspected interference was swift and final. But the sun is dipping low again, and there's still ground to cover. One of them points at your sandals and whispers something that makes the others giggle. You wave. They scatter. The road narrows again, just wide enough for a runner or a stubborn goat. You know this stretch. It's where thieves like to hide. Others insist that any flaw was treated as a sign of tampering, especially when messages involve sensitive military or political orders. Keep it pressed to your side like it's your own heartbeat. Just another peasant with somewhere to be. A warning, maybe. Or bait you don't stop to find out. You once saw it happen. Another runner young, fast, maybe too fast. The last light clings to the hills like a beggar's hand. You keep running, slower now, but steady. You looked away before the blade came down. But you still heard it. Didn't matter. You sit with your back against the trunk and pull your cloak tight. The night air slices through your sweat-damp clothes. If someone wants it badly enough, they'll take your hand with it. Probably closer to leather, but it's food. The postmaster inspected it, frowned, and called the guards. The boy didn't argue, just stood there, eyes wide. Since then, you wrap the pouch tighter. Because the seal isn't just wax, it's a boundary. Between duty and death, between service and suspicion. Historians have long speculated on the protocols for handling damaged seals in the Achaemenid system. Fringe theories even propose that double sealing was used, 2 marks from 2 separate authorities. You dropped half your food just to get them off your scent. The message still made it, the boots didn't, so no pressure. The sky out here is clearer than in the cities. No torches, no smoke, no shouting, just you, and the dark. You stand now brushing dust from your tunic. Your legs argue, your ankles sulk. A few children pass you near the gate, herding sheep. Your path now bends eastward, hugging the base of a rocky ridge. You adjust your pouch so the seal faces inward. Not that it would matter. The trick is to look like you have nothing worth stealing. Dirty cloak, tired eyes, no coin belt. You pass an overturned cart on the side of the path, old, broken, its cargo long gone. Night falls slowly but fully. A dog howls in the distance. You remember that time near Ecbatana when a pack of wild dogs chased you 2 miles down a ravine. As the stars appear slowly, one by one you allow yourself a moment of wonder. And still, the seal glows faintly in the moonlight when you check it again. You stop near a lone acacia tree. Not much shelter, but it'll do. You nibble on a strip of salted lamb, not fresh. And food is life. Just as you're drifting off, you hear something. Steps, not yours, not animal. 2 men pass nearby, muttering in low voices. You freeze, they don't see you. Or if they do, they don't care. You breathe again once they're gone. You rest, but only lightly. Just before dawn, you wake, pack your things, and start moving again. Because the seal is still unbroken. And the Empire is still listening. Your breath forms faint clouds in the early chill. The ground is firm but damp from the night's dew, and it clings to your sandals like a reminder. You are far from done. The wax is cool now, hardened fully, no sign of melting. Still perfect. You adjust your pouch, still cradling the sealed scroll like it's a newborn one that could doom you if dropped. You press on. The morning trail winds through sparse woodland, scrubby and uneven. Sharp rocks hide beneath fallen leaves, waiting for the inattentive, but you've run this route before. Maybe it's that stupid runner's pride again. Maybe it's the small miracle that your last fig didn't come with a surprise insect inside. You remember which roots will twist, which stones will tilt, and the one spot where the trail vanishes for 20 steps before reappearing near a stand of sickly pines. Your legs feel better than they should. Maybe it's the cooler air. Once, runners like you would stop and leave offerings there, bits of food, worn-out beads, pieces of broken sandals. A tiny place with a watchtower, a salt trader, and a habit of pretending it isn't on any map. She once told you she ran barefoot until she was 20. One of them nods at you, clearly recognizing the pouch. You still have the scar she gave you from the time she thwacked your shin with a stick for eating too fast for a run. You've never seen it mentioned in a scroll, but you've run through it a dozen times. Today, it's just you in the wind and a bird that looks like it's judging your form. And every now and then, it's something stranger-coded reports, marriage decrees, or even messages written in a script you can't read. You never found out if it was intentional. You hope it was. The heat returns slowly, coiling up from the stones, whispering that it never really left. You tighten your head wrap and pick up the pace. Whatever it is, you make good time. Chickens running loose, one donkey tied to a tree, and 3 houses that seem to lean on each other for support. The old woman sits in her usual spot, weaving what looks like a sandal strap. You pass a rusted bronze shrine, one of those old pre-Zoroastrian relics nobody tends anymore. You pass through cities and deserts, forests, and mountain paths. You see more of the empire than most of its rulers ever do. You don't stop. Still running. The next village is about 10 leagues ahead. The villagers keep their distance. You're the one who brings news, and that makes people nervous. And they know you. There's an old woman there who used to be a runner herself, back in the days when mail was stitched into tunics and sent across mountain passes without a written word. Every stone placed by someone who probably died before the road was ever used. You reach the edge of the forest and the trail opens into the sun again. You leave without fanfare. Runners never linger. You're like the wind. You stop just for a moment and breathe. It's beautiful, brutal too, but beautiful. Others believe it was carved swiftly under Darius's orders, with slave labor and military engineering. You pretend it's watching over you, not waiting for you to collapse. The kind of place that has a scribe, a market, and at least 3 people who will try to sell you vinegar disguised as wine. The truth probably lies somewhere in between, like most things in this world. And like the wind, you carry things people don't always want to feel. You pass a pair of farmers tilling a field with a wooden plow. News from the capital? He asks. Always, you reply. And every sealed scroll is a storm, waiting to land on someone's peaceful little world. He smiles like he knows what that means. He doesn't. Truth is, even you don't always know. Most of the time it's military orders. Sometimes it's tax edicts. Once you delivered a scroll that sang when unrolled. Literally, some sort of reed instrument built into the parchment. That's the thing about being a runner in the Persian Empire. You read both everywhere and nowhere. You pass a crumbling milestone and pause to run your fingers over the etched cuneiform. It's nearly worn smooth. You trace the grooves out of habit more than anything, and yet you're invisible. You arrive in the village around midday. It's as small and dusty as ever. She squints at you. You again. You grin, she snorts. Still living? Barely. She throws you a water skin. It's fresh, cool, heavy with mint leaves. You thank her with a nod. You rest in the shade for a short while, long enough to tighten your sandal ties and chew a strip of dried plum. Because news is change, and change is danger. The empire, for all its roads and monuments, still runs on whispers. You refill your skin, give a grateful glance to the old woman, and set off again. The next part of your journey winds uphill toward the higher ridges. Someone built this road. With their hands, their backs, their tools, you're their echo. Historians still wonder how long it took to build the royal road. Some say it was done in stages over generations. You reach the ridge by late afternoon. The view opens like a story scroll, revealing valleys and scattered farms below. A hawk circles above, downhill now. The last push toward the next regional outpost. Bigger than a village, smaller than a city. You pick up your pace, the path twists, loose with gravel. You nearly stumble, but you recover. You always do. The sun dips again. The shadows grow long. And with every step, the seal in your pouch taps gently against your hip. Unbroken, unopened, unseen, and yet, somehow holding all the weight of the world. The regional outpost welcomes you with dust in your teeth and the scent of boiled onions thick in the air. The sun's last light glances off the tiled roofs, and the sounds of market packing echo through the stone alleys, crates thumping shut, animals grunting, the slap of rugs shaking clean. You slow your pace as you cross the town's threshold, the weight of your journey pooling in your knees. You don't head for the taverns or food stalls, tempting as they are. You head straight for the satrap's courier station. A squat building of clay brick and timber, its facade decorated with the same royal emblem stamped into the seal in your pouch. The symbol is more than design, it's authority, fear, and on days like today, your only protection. The station guard doesn't bother asking questions. He sees the pouch. He opens the gate. You step inside. The chief scribe looks up from a wax tablet, squinting at you like he's seen 1,000 runners today and none of them particularly memorable. The interior is cooler, lined with scroll racks, message slates, and oil lamps that cast long, lazy shadows across the floor. You walk up and wordlessly present the sealed scroll. He holds it like a sacred object, inspects the wax. His eyebrows lift just slightly before he nods and sets it aside on a black stone tray. Reply in the morning, he says. That's it, no praise. No water, no bread, no thank you for not dying in the desert. Just a dismissal and the faint scratching of a stylus on another scroll. You nod once and walk out. You're used to this. No one celebrates the mailman, especially one who smells like he lost a wrestling match with a goatskin rug. A faded bruise on your left hip from when you tripped over a root outside Bahistan. And a small tattoo just above your ankle, a runner's mark, inked years ago when you first earned your sea license. He knows you. You've been here before. Still, there's one place that never disappoints. You turn the corner and head for the bathhouse. It's small, worn, and half the tiles are missing, but it's got steam and soap and silence. You trade a few dried figs to the keeper, who lets you in without comment. Some believe you were trained with knowledge of court affairs and high policy. Others argue you were kept in the dark on purpose, tools to be used and discarded. Inside, the air is warm and wet, thick enough to drink. You strip, lower yourself into the water, and nearly weep when the heat touches your legs. There's a scar on your shin from a thorn in the Zagros. The other bathers don't ask questions. You don't offer stories. You dry yourself with a scrap of linen and slip into your sleep tunic just enough cloth to not scandalize the stars. A boy plays a reed flute nearby. You resist the urge to throw him an olive pit. Because here as the truth they don't print on tablets, most of what you deliver never comes back to you. You carry secrets, but you never learn them. You run for the empire, but you're not really part of it. You're a vessel, a whisper with feet. There is a debate among the learned ones in Susa and Persepolis about whether runners like you understood the full political role you played. You sit in the bath and wonder, does it matter? You rise from the water an hour later, skin wrinkled and spirit vaguely repaired. The kind that seeps in behind your eyes, dries your lips from the inside out. You eat a quiet meal in the corner of a food stall, lentils, flatbread, a handful of olives. And then it's time to sleep. If someone wanted to ambush you, they'd have a clear line of sight for miles. And you'd have nowhere to run. One step, then another, and another. A heartbeat in sandals. You find a corner of the station's open-air courtyard. Curl up with your cloak beneath your head and close your eyes beneath the moon. For once, there's no seal pressing against your side. Through scrublands and dry creek beds, past the stone well where you once fought a hawk for a drink, and on toward the dunes where sand creeps across the path like a slow flood. You dream of rivers that run backward, of horses with human eyes, of roads that spiral endlessly toward the sun. You wake before dawn, and the reply is waiting. A fresh scroll. A heavier pouch, a thicker seal, no words from the scribe, just a nod. You slip the pouch over your shoulder and feel its weight settle against your ribs. Then you run. You nod to it, a habit, a superstition. Runners who don't acknowledge the dead sometimes join them. This time the road turns west. The heat returns by mid-morning. Not brutal yet, but insistent. You sip your water, sparingly, always sparingly. And still you move. The terrain here is flatter but cruel in its own way. No hills, no shade, just open land. You jog with your head down, eyes scanning for movement, breath steady. The seal, you notice, has a new design. Double-ringed. Higher clearance. It means someone important wants to keep this very quiet. You don't ask who. You don't want to know. All you know is that it must not break, and it must not be late. Your pace quickens. Around midday, you pass the old burial mound, nothing more than a hump of stones and cracked skulls now, picked clean by wind and time. By nightfall, you'll be near the edge of the royal hunting ground's dangerous territory, technically restricted. But you've cut through it before, less distance, more risk. But when a seal bears two rings, you reach the edge of the hunting grounds just as the light begins to die, that blue-gray hour where even trees seem unsure whether to cast shadows. You stop just long enough to catch your breath and tighten your sandals. This is no ordinary shortcut. This is the place where runners either make up time or vanish. The occasional stray line released here by bored nobles with a taste for drama. You enter. And time, barely visible, a memory of a path more than a path itself. Your feet know where to land. You've run this way before. Once during a downpour so thick you swore fish would rain from the trees. Once at night with only the moon and one very confused owl to guide you. In your world is always slipping through your fingers like dry sand. Of course you do. No. What really unnerves you is the quiet. The unsettling velvet hush that falls over the forest as if the trees themselves are waiting for something. It's not the predators that worry you, though there are plenty. Boars with tempers, wolves with sharp etiquette. Not enough to invite a wildcat to tea, but enough to keep running with your back very straight. Others believe certain runners were assigned to regions they knew intimately from childhood sons of hunters, trackers, or nomads. A few argue that runners mark the trails themselves, using coded scratches on bark or stones to signal danger or water. Arms tight to your sides, breathing sharp and shallow. This is the old rural campsite once used by kings during ceremonial hunts. The air smells of bark, damp clay, and something else sweet, almost floral. Now it's just a flat patch of earth, ringed by ruined posts and the ghosts of banquets long since devoured. What's certain is that no horse would get through here without making a scene. This path belongs to human feet and nerves of iron, still. When he finally stopped to rest, it lay down 5 paces away and simply stared until dawn. Then it left. A twig snaps. Because the seal in your pouch doesn't care about your fears. It doesn't care about lions, it cares about time. The trail is faint, thorns scratch your ankles. Somewhere to your right, it means you're close to open ground again. You breathe deeper, looser. You're not a trespasser, you're the king's breath. His whisper on legs, something large exhales. You don't look, you smile. It's faint, but real. Looking gives things power. The underbrush tugs at your legs. You quicken your steps, you hadn't even started running then. Your legs were still soft. Your dreams were still loud. Double-ringed seals don't show up often. And when they do, it usually means something big is happening. Empty, probably abandoned for the season. But near it, under a ledge, is a clay jar half buried in the dirt. You uncap it gently and sniff. There are old signs posted here, wooden slats with worn symbols warning trespassers of royal penalties. But those don't apply to you. You become a shadow among shadows. The ground softens beneath you as the forest floor thickens pine needles, moss, rotting leaves. Your footsteps fall silently now. Somewhere behind you, not to a scribe this time, but to a military attach. That means the contents are urgent, possibly dangerous. You don't stop. One time, an older runner told you the story of a wildcat that stalked him for 2 leagues, never attacking, just watching. Respect, the old runner said. It knew I had something sacred. You liked that story. Historians still debate how runners navigated these uncharted paths. Some suggest they were taught secret routes by local guides. You know the truth lies somewhere in that mix. You reach a clearing by moonrise, wide and silvered. You don't stop. The clearing always makes you uneasy. Not for its emptiness, but for how it reminds you what power looks like when it's abandoned. You keep running and the trees begin to thin. Jasmine, that's a good sign. The eastern edge of the forest is lined with jasmine hedges planted generations ago to welcome returning hunters. And then you see it, the stone archway, half collapsed but still standing, marking the forest's end and the royal road's return. You pass beneath it and the stars widen above you. The sky seems larger now, less crowded. You stop, not for long, just long enough to check the seal. Still there, still flawless. A part of you wishes you could know what's inside. You wonder if this message will change a village or a city or an entire border. You wonder who will read it. You wonder what it would be like to carry a message that saves someone instead of condemns them. And then you start moving again. The terrain here is gentler rolling hills, scattered olive groves, an actual road again beneath your feet. Your stomach growls, reminding you that the last thing you ate was an olive pit's worth of soup-scented air. You reach into your pouch and find a few sesame wafers folded in cloth. Cracked but edible, you chew slowly, savoring the brittle sweetness. You remember a festival once, long ago, when your mother baked them for New Year. Now your legs are stone. And your dreams don't speak much anymore. You pass a shepherd's hut, water, cool, clean, you drink. Not too much, just enough to wash the forest from your mouth. You leave a token, a coin carved from bone, marked with a runner's symbol. It'll mean something to whoever finds it. You continue into the night. This road will take you to a fortified town where the scroll must be handed over in person. You adjust the pouch again. It's heavier now, or maybe your shoulders are just tired of the burden. You run, and with every step, you become what you've always been. A flicker between villages, a rumor on the wind, a name no one remembers unless something goes wrong. The seal thumps against your side, a heartbeat that isn't yours. And ahead, the Empire waits. You reach the fortress just before sunrise, sky blooming soft orange behind the ramparts. The world somewhere between asleep and awake. Your legs feel like they're moving on instinct now, one step, then another, driven more by habit than will. A pair of guards stand at the gate, shifting weight from foot to foot like they've been there all night, which they probably have. Their spears lean casually against the wall, but their eyes are sharp. Trained, the walls are high and solid. Carved stone fitted so tightly you can barely slide a blade between them. You don't speak. You move past the drills and shout at orders, barely noticed, just another silent courier crossing paths with swords and salutes. You just hold up the pouch. They glance at the seal and step aside. You walk through as if pulled by some unseen thread. You've passed hundreds of gates like this one, each different in size or smell or language, but they all open the same way when the seal is true. Inside the courtyard, the garrison stirs to life. Boots on stone, the clink of armor, the faint sting of vinegar and sweat in the air. He takes the pouch with both hands and bows slightly. You notice the way he studies the seal, first lips parting in surprise, then turns and disappears without a word. You find the attaches hall easily. You've delivered here before, though never anything with a seal like this. This is the kind of message that arrives with trembling hands and leaves with orders for 100 men. A few soldiers spark quietly in a side yard, their wooden swords cracking like firewood. Someone nearby is grinding lentils for a stew, and the smell teases your empty stomach with every breath. The crack of wax is louder than you expect, as if the whole fortress flinches at the sound. The aide who meets you is young, alert, too clean to have run more than a mile in his life. You wait. Not out of politeness, but protocol. Some messages require verification of delivery. Others come with a reply. You sit on a bench beneath an archway, flexing your toes and listening to the fortress breathe. Banners flutter overhead. You don't eat. Not until the scroll is officially received. A soldier brings a flat cake and a slice of goat cheese. Dreams flicker shapes, voices, the feeling of running on an endless path that leads back to where you started. You eat slowly, not out of courtesy, but because your body might riot if you feed it too fast. 10 minutes pass. You're handed both with a level stare and a warning. Then 20. Then the aide returns, flanked now by a man in darker robes, older, scarred, eyes sharp enough to cut stone. This is the attach. He does not smile. It'll be 2 days if you run well. Less if the weather stays clear. More if the gods decide they're bored. You lower your head wrap, squinting against the light, and let your body fall into rhythm again. He nods. You make good time. The green one feels cold. The black one feels like it might burn through the leather. You say nothing. You just nod once and wait. A place known only to runners, passed down in quiet murmurs and hand gestures. You refill your skin and rinse your face. The water is cold enough to make your teeth ache. You don't care. He takes the pouch, inspects the seal carefully, then breaks it with a flick of his nail. He unrolls the scroll, reads in silence, a pause, then he refolds it and turns away. You'll wait for reply, of course. Some argue you were trained as neutral agents, honored, even protected by both sides in border disputes. The road begins to curve along the edge of a canyon, the stone walls glowing deep orange in the fading light. A pair of hawks circle overhead. You feel them before you see them, their shadows slipping across your skin. Others suggest the Empire used you as bait, sometimes sending decoys or false scrolls to confuse spies. You'd like to think they wouldn't risk you that way. You're shown to a small cell beside the hall, bare stone, low bench, pitcher of water. You sleep sitting up, head against the wall. You've learned how. It's not real sleep, but it's enough. By afternoon, the reply is ready. This time 2 scrolls. One sealed in the king's green wax, the other in the attaches black. No delays. No detours. You don't ask where the scrolls are headed. You don't ask what they contain. That's not your place. But the weight of them sits different in your pouch. You tighten the strap and walk back through the courtyard. Your route takes you south, now through lowlands, toward the bend of a great river and the city beyond. The heat creeps back by mid-afternoon, rising off the road like invisible fire. Thump, thump, breath, thump. The road here is straighter, flatter, but exposed, no cover, no wells for long stretches. It was designed for speed, for horses, not feet, but you make it work. You stop only once, by a spring hidden in the rocks. You think you sleep under the stars with a rock for a pillow and your pouch cradled in your arms like a child you didn't ask for. The night is cool, almost gentle, the wind rustling dry grass like the whispered secrets you carry. The green and black seals press into your ribs, constant reminders that even while you sleep, the Empire is moving, always moving. You wake before dawn, long before the sun's first edge dares peek over the canyon wall. No birds yet, no color in the sky. Just you, the shadows, and your blistered soles. You stretch. You roll your shoulders. You check the pouch. Both seals still intact. Then you run. Your path today cuts through what once was a battlefield. The only way across is the ferry, a raft lashed together with logs and prayers. You can't tell at first, just more open hills and broken trees, but then you see it. Scars in the stone where fires once burned, critter-like holes from old siege weapons. Bones, mostly buried now, but some still poking through, a jaw. A heel, the rusted edge of a blade someone once swung in panic or pride. You don't linger. A war happened here, you're not sure which one. There have been too many. You crest a ridge and the river reveals itself wide, muddy, and slow, like a sleeping giant that might roll over and flood everything out of spite. The river groans beneath you. The scrolls feel heavier here. You wonder if the water knows what you carry. But you can tell he already knows. He's seen enough runners fly across his raft to sense the wind shifting. Some evidence suggests that even villagers could sense political changes through courier traffic, more messengers. More urgency, more silence. Others think the system was designed to keep the public out of the loop entirely. You jog down toward the landing where an old man sits beneath the reed shelter, chewing something and pretending he hasn't noticed you. I've got sealed dispatches, you say, already fishing out your ferry token. The Empire doesn't whisper without someone hearing. It's clay stamped with the sigil of the Royal Courier Office. Shepherd boys watch you pass from beneath fig trees, too bored to be curious. He tucks it into his belt like a charm and waves you off. A place of trade and secrets and taxes, too big for its own roads, too loud for sleep. Ugly little thing, but powerful. Even the ferryman squints at it with respect. Your thighs burn, your breath rasps, but you don't slow. Not with these seals, not this close to the city. You take it, slipping past laundry lines and board guards who don't even blink at your arrival. He nods and slowly rises, joints cracking like dry branches. Tall, severe, a scar like a question mark runs down his cheek. He wears the rings of a provincial governor but carries himself like a soldier. He does not smile. You move through it like water silent, steady, unseen. As you cross, you sit still and quiet, eyes fixed on the far bank. Halfway across, the ferryman speaks. Another war coming? You glance at him. His eyes are tired. His voice isn't unkind. You shrug. Messages. Not my business. The kind of place that smells like ink and ambition. You are met by a clerk who doesn't speak but leads you down a hallway lined with tablets and maps and portraits of people who've never run a mile in their lives. He nods. Historians still argue whether ordinary citizens in the Empire were aware of rising tensions between regions. But you know the truth. People always know. They feel it in the air, in the way the guards walk faster and priests speak more cautiously. You reach the far bank and thank the ferryman with a nod and a small flat stone carved with a runner's mark. The road beyond climbs again steep, rocky, punishing. The fields begin to appear around midday, patches of barley and sesame swaying in neat rows. You grab a flatbread from a street vendor's basket, toss him a bone coin, and keep moving. And then, in the distance, the city. You adjust your pouch, now lighter, but soon to be heavy again. It rises like a mirage from the dry hills, white walls gleaming, banners fluttering from towers. You don't enter through the main gate. There's a side path known only to runners, guards, and the occasional goat thief that leads to a narrow service entrance near the administrative quarter. Inside, the city breathes like a beast, shouts echoing off stone, carts rattling down alleys, the sharp scent of onions and fish rising from every direction. Your destination is a domed hall near the center of the district. At the end, a door, bronze, heavy. She knocks once, then opens it. Inside stands a man you know by sight but not by name. You step forward and offer the pouch. He takes it, nods at the seals, and murmurs something to the clerk, who vanishes like spilled ink. He breaks the green seal first. Unrolls the scroll, reads, his jaw tightens, then the black seal. More reading, silence. You stand perfectly still. Finally, he looks at you, not through you at you. You'll return with a reply, possibly two. He plays. The postmaster at the relay station has no eyebrows. You've never asked why, and maybe a cooking accident. Maybe a childhood prank gone too far, but they give him a look of permanent surprise, like he's always mildly startled to be alive. He takes the plain scroll you deliver with those wide, unblinking eyes, reads it in silence, and nods. Return dispatch ready by dawn, he says. You nod back. Then he tosses you a bag of boiled lentils and a rolled sleeping mat. Eat, sleep. Then run. He says it like a priest reciting a hymn. The order is sacred. You obey. You find a quiet corner of the compound, just dirt, a leaning wall, and a sky full of stars, and sit with your knees pulled to your chest, munching lentils that taste vaguely of dust and onion. You've had worse. Once you ate soup that turned out to be warm water with a single floating beetle and a hint of regret. You carry it with both hands for the first few steps like a small animal that might bite. Then you sling it over your shoulder and start again. Afterward, you rest. Not deeply. Not enough to dream. Just enough to reset. At dawn, the reply is waiting. A sealed pouch, heavy and warm, its wax still soft. This time the path leads east. The hills flatten into plains. The wind smells of fennel and smoke. The sun is already higher than you'd like. It's going to be a long, hot day. You fall into rhythm again. Step, step, breath, step. You pass a pair of traders with ox carts, their wheels groaning against the ruts in the road. You pick up your pace, hoping to outrun it. You don't. One offers you a drink. You accept. It tastes like overripe melon and possibly regret. You thank him anyway. You pull your tunic higher, wrap your scarf tighter, lower your head and run into it like a man charging a sand god. You keep running. Others suggest that some runners carried primitive compasses or used celestial cues. A few French scholars believe certain families pass down runner senses, a kind of inherited orientation skill. You wipe it clean and see the sign you hoped for. A runner's cross two intersecting lines carved into the base. A relay hut is nearby. You'd laugh, but right now your legs seem to know better than your brain where to go. You stumble inside like a man arriving home after a war. The first milestone reads, to Bactra minus 123 leagues. You sigh, not because of the distance, but because you know that every one of those leagues will be earned. This region is known for dust storms. You can already see one building on the horizon, clouds of red and gold rising like a curtain between you and your next stop. By midday, the dust is on you, fine gritting your nose, your teeth, your ears, your thoughts. You can barely see the road. You trust your feet more than your eyes. You leap a dried riverbed, skirt a field of thorns, duck beneath branches that snatch at your pack like they've got something to prove. Historians still argue about how runners maintain navigation in storms like this. Some claim routes were memorized down to every tree, stone, and bend. You arrived with nothing dry but your eyebrows. You emerge from the storm 3 hours later, coughing and coated in red dust, looking like a statue abandoned in the desert. You pause beside a stone marker half buried in sand. Sure enough, it appears over the next rise, a squat shelter of sun-baked brick and thatch, half hidden behind a ridge. Sticky, sweet, almost emotional. For a moment, you close your eyes and pretend you're not moving through a world built on deadlines and urgency. The hut is empty. But there's water in the jar, firewood stacked near the hearth, and a message slot cut into the rear wall. You rest. You drink deeply. You clean your face. You peel off your cloak and let it dry. Then you check the seal. Still there. Still warm, still perfect. After an hour, you're moving again. This next leg is familiar, though rough, cutting through scrubland and animal trails. His eyes widen just enough to tell you he recognizes the mark. You remember running this stretch during a flood. You waded through waist-deep mud, the scroll wrapped in oilcloth and clenched between your teeth. Today is easier, just the usual sun, dust, and hunger. You find a patch of shade beneath a crooked tree and chew a strip of apricot paste. You didn't lie. But sometimes the truth feels like the sharpest edge. But then you hear it, hooves, riders. You stand immediately. 2 soldiers crest the ridge, black armor glinting. They spot you, slow, approach. You keep your hand on the pouch. They stop 10 paces away. One nods. Courier? You nod back? Sealed. Destination? High Satrap of Ecbatana. The second rider eyes your pouch. We've had reports of tampering. Bandits posing as runners. You lift the flap. You reach Ekbatana just as the first stars appear, pricking the darkening sky like tiny burns in velvet. The city spills across the plain, concentric walls glowing faintly in the last light, layers of silver and stone and status. Each ring means something: class, power, risk. And as a runner, you're allowed through all of them. Not because of who you are, but because of what you carry. You take the southern gate, where the guards wear blue cloaks and speak with clipped syllables that suggest they haven't smiled since the last eclipse. They don't question you. They see the pouch and wave you through. The green seal gleams in the torchlight. It has that effect. The streets still hum with sandals on stone, hushed voices behind latticework windows, the far-off twang of a lyre. Incense wafts from open doorways. Somewhere a drunk sings about a camel he once loved and lost. You don't pause to appreciate the poetry. You slip into the city like a breath. Thin, severe, wearing robes so starched you can hear them creak. He holds out his hand. Ekbatana is quieter at night, but never asleep. Frowns, steps aside. You've been here before. You know the way. Upward, always upward past the market quarter, where empty stalls still hold the scent of saffron and dried fish. Past the scribes' district, where candlelight flickers behind every shutter. Past the bronze gates of the barracks, where soldiers polish armor no one ever sees rust. A single brazier burns low. Behind a table sits a man wrapped in green and gold, fingers tented, expression unreadable. A man who now gestures for your pouch like he's asking for salt. At the fourth ring, a clerk intercepts you. You present the pouch. He examines the seal without touching it. You're expected, he says. You pass statues of kings with tired eyes and lions that never blink. The floors are clean enough to eat from, which says more about the cleaners than the kings. That's never good news. You follow him through a corridor of echoing marble. At last, a door opens, and you're ushered in. The room is dim and high-ceilinged. Scrolls line the walls. You recognize him not by name, but by presence. This is the High Satrap, a man who signs edicts that move armies, a man whose decisions can unmake cities. You hand it over. He breaks the seal and reads in silence. The only sound is the faint crackle of the brazier and your own breath, still catching from the climb. He finishes, sets the scroll aside, and leans back. There will be a reply, he says. Of course, still it might be the best night you've had in a week. Warm rice, tart yogurt, bread that doesn't crack your teeth. You eat like someone who doesn't know when the next meal is coming. Because you don't. He looks at you fully now, studies your face. Not with pity, but calculation. You ran through the storm? He asks. You nod. And you weren't intercepted? 2 soldiers? Verified the seal. He nods, taps the scroll once. This message shifts a border. You stop, press your fingers to the cold stone, and whisper the runner's blessing. You say nothing. That sort of information is like poison, lethal if you hold on to it too long. There's a banquet tonight, he says absently. Figs, boiled lamb, 20 musicians. The sun doesn't reach here until late morning. The air tastes like stone and iron and old secrets. The grass here grows in tufts, and the sun seems to chase your shadow like it's trying to catch you in the act of slowing down. He looks at you as if expecting a reaction. You say nothing. Merchants. They see the seal and step aside. One of them mutters something about war. Another offers you dried apricots. You take 2. You wave. He gestures to a guard. Give him food. Let him sleep. The reply leaves at dawn. You nod once and leave. Some say you were trained to stay neutral. Others argue that too many runners disappeared after delivering certain scrolls. The food is better than expected. You bypass the taverns and the temple and head straight to the courier outpost. A younger runner is there, maybe 13, all knees and nerves. The sleeping quarters are less lavish: straw mat, thin blanket, a cracked jug of water. You sleep deep and dreamless. When you wake, the reply is ready. Another green seal. This one bears a spiral, a private symbol, used only for messages that go directly to the king. You hold it in your hands for a moment. Then you run. The path east out of Ekbatana is narrower, less traveled. It winds through a canyon where cliffs lean inward like suspicious uncles. You keep a steady pace. No sprinting, not yet. You pass an old shrine built into the rock, wall-faded carvings of birds, coins wedged in every crack. Let my legs not fail before the message speaks. It's silly, it's ancient, but it's tradition. The road twists on. By noon, you hit the open plain again, windy, bright, unforgiving. You don't let it. You stop at a spring to drink, then pass a caravan going the other way. You don't stop. Because this message is a spiral. And spirals, you've learned, mean things are about to tighten. Historians debate whether runners like you ever understood the political storms they carried. You know that fear isn't paranoia, it's policy. You reach the next town by nightfall. You rise before the sun again. It's not just habit, it's survival. Runners beat the heat by beating the dawn, and the scroll in your pouch, spiral sealed and royal scented, doesn't appreciate delays. Your feet know the way before your mind catches up. This is the oldest part of the royal road. Here, every pebble has a name, every bend a ghost. You eat a fig, drink the last of your water, and start east toward Persepolis. The birds begin their morning arguments in a thorn bush. A camel bleats in the distance, sounding both alarmed and personally offended. Somewhere nearby, a farmer is yelling at goats. The road ahead climbs, dips, and curves through valleys where mist lingers like spilled milk. You pass a shrine built to honor the first messenger who ever ran this stretch. Legend says he carried news of the king's birth on one leg after being wounded in a raid. Scholars argue whether he existed or if he's just a symbol. You nod to his statue anyway. He's missing a foot. Seems fitting. You press on. The sun rises behind you, letting the road in streaks of gold and rust. It's almost peaceful until it's not. The other has the kind of face you only get from being punched a lot and winning half the time. They don't speak. Just look at you. Then at your pouch. You round a bend and find the road blocked. Two men, not soldiers, not merchants. One leans on a walking stick too smooth to be used for walking. Courier, the taller one says. Going to the capital? You don't answer. You just show the seal. Their eyes narrow. That's a dangerous seal, says Punchface. You stay close to the edge, where the dirt is softer and your sandals grip better. A lot of people might want what's in there, adds Stick. It's tradition to tap it. So you do, you nod once. Then take a step forward. And dry and slightly metallic-like, it's blowing off a forge. You squint against it, lowering your scarf. It carries smells from the capital. Incense, fire, ambition. You lift it, drink, replace it. Leave a pebble beside it, the quiet signal that it's safe today. They don't move. Runners must arrive calm, controlled. Sprinting into the capital like your sandals are on fire gets you one thing, suspicion. The tension tightens like a bowstring, you're fast. You know the terrain, but two against one with nowhere to dodge? Risky. First the tall watchtowers, then the pale stone steps. Then the terraces stacked like giants' furniture. Finally, the palace roofs gleaming gold even through the haze. And then you hear it. You're waved through without a word. Hoofbeats. The final door is plain wood, unmarked but unmistakable, from behind. You suppress a laugh. It's the third such man you've seen this month. Coincidence? Conspiracy? Fashion trend? 4 riders crest the ridge, royal insignias. Actual guards. You feel it in your chest, the coiled energy of a place expecting news it doesn't want to hear. Then melt into the scrub, muttering curses. The guards glance at you as they pass, but don't stop. They've got other things on their minds. The 2 men freeze. You exhale, once, then you run. This section of road is lined with tamarisk trees, skinny, wind-warped things that lean like old men trying to remember something. Their shade is thin but welcome. The pouch has left a red line across your shoulder. You press it, wincing. Then straighten. Runners are meant to look untouched, effortless. Even when they've just escaped desert bandits, sandstorms, and a suspicious number of eyebrowless men. No seal. You reach the halfway marker by noon, a stone obelisk carved with ancient symbols and a crude runner. S-face someone chiseled in later. There's water buried nearby, a shallow basin covered by a flat stone. The hills flatten for a while. The wind picks up, hot you run faster. Persepolis grows visible around the next bend, not all at once, but in pieces. The city's alive, not just bustling roaring. Traders shout, priests chant, horses clatter, dust swirls. Even the air seems louder here. You slow, not from exhaustion, but necessity. You cross the bridge over the dry moat. Show your seal at the first gate. A board guard peers at it, then whistles. Another opens the inner gate. Inside, the city unfolds in geometric layers, every street a statement, every statue an argument. You've been here before. Each time, something is different. This time, it's the tension. People speak more quietly, officials walk faster. Soldiers are stationed at corners usually left unguarded. You follow the runner's route through the administrative quarter, up a flight of marble stairs, past scribes who don't look up. You knock once, the door opens. You leave Persepolis before the stars have fully retaken the sky. The streets are quieter now, less anxious, more resigned. As if everyone already knows something's changing. Maybe it's your scroll, maybe it's something bigger. You don't stay to find out. Arbela lies far to the northwest. Across jagged hills, dry plateaus, and enough wind to skin a camel. You've never taken this route with a sealed scroll before. Only once for training. And even then, you were limping by the end. But this time the scroll is real, the seal is gold. Not wax gold, pressed between two plates and crimped like a coin. You've never carried one of these, you don't know what it means. One of them touches the pouch and whispers, "Gods protect the truth." You wrap strips of cloth around the soles and keep going. You're not sure if they meant it as a blessing or a warning. You just run. The first 2 days pass in a blur of silence and distance. The road is narrow, sometimes vanishing entirely. You slide a runner's token through the slot anyway. A sign that someone came through. That the line is still alive. You navigate by memory and instinct, following the slope of the land, the shape of the wind. You dream of lions wearing crowns and couriers made of sand. You pass no cities. No relay stations. Just a pair of shepherds who point toward a spring when they see your runner's pouch. The air smells of cumin, sweat, and politics. From here, it looks like a painting, quiet, balanced, untouched. Guards see the seal and step back. One salutes. You refill your skin. Offer them the crust of your flatbread and thanks. They nod. You don't respond, but everyone steps aside for a runner. Or maybe it's just the gold seal. It has that kind of presence. By the third day, your legs ache deep in the bone. Your sandals are fraying. The doors are made of wood so dark it might as well be shadow. The sun seems lower here, angrier. It presses on your neck like a question you can't answer. You pass an outpost abandoned, roof collapsed, message slots still intact. Some think only the fastest were chosen. Others believe psychological endurance mattered more than the ability to remain calm. Silent and unknown was the true training. No throne, no guards. Just a table, a jug of wine, and too many maps. You suspect it's both. After all, what good is a fast messenger if he talks too much or gets curious? Then back to the trail. You sleep in a cave that smells of old water and bird droppings. When you wake, the scroll is still there, still sealed. Still waiting. You run. Historians still argue whether runners were tested mentally as well as physically. You crest a ridge and see Arbela at last sunlit and sprawling, ringed with olive groves and dust. You know better. You approach the gates without slowing. The city swallows you. The streets are packed. Market stalls overflow with textiles, spice, and gossip. You reach the satrap's court just before dusk. The building is older than the city around it. The walls lean like tired men. You knock. A servant answers, sees the seal. Bows so fast his forehead smacks the doorframe. You're led through halls lined with faded murals, battles, coronations, divine figures whispering in royal ears. All the things power likes to remember. The satrap meets you in a side chamber. You head straight for the edge. You don't even look for food. There's too much adrenaline in your veins for hunger. He takes the scroll without speaking, studies the seal, weighs it in his hand. Then he breaks it. The golden crimp snaps like thunder in the quiet room. He reads. He doesn't move. Just reads. Then he looks at you. How fast can you return to Persepolis? You swallow. 3 days, if I don't stop. He nods. There's no reply, not yet. You nod. You turn. You walk. But before you leave the chamber, he says, whatever happens next. The seal you carried may have changed everything. You pause, but don't reply. Because runners don't get involved. You step back into the city, now cloaked in dusk and noise. You run again. And you will keep running. Because you are the pulse of this empire. And the empire doesn't sleep. The road behind you stretches like a memory, dusty, distant, and full of things you didn't have time to feel. Your legs ache, sure, your shoulders too. But more than that, it's your breath slow now even. The kind of calm that only arrives when the weight is lifted. You find a quiet place to rest. Maybe beneath an old fig tree, its branches curled like fingers offering shelter. Maybe in a hollow by the river where the grass hushes with every breeze. You sit, you stretch. You listen to the silence between wind gusts. The scroll is gone. The seal is broken. The message has flown, and you're still here. You're still the runner, even without something to carry. Because the message was never just the scroll, was it? It was the road, the hours, the breath you pushed into the hills, the trust placed in your hands. The entire weight of kings and kingdoms riding in a small leather pouch pressed against your chest. And now you just breathe. You feel your heartbeat slow, your eyes soften, your thoughts drift. The stars return one by one, then all at once spilling across the sky like 1,000 tiny nods of approval. You've done your part, let the others run now. Close your eyes. Feel the breeze. Let the empire carry itself for a while. You've earned your rest. Good night, runner.